that the conclusion Nagarjuna draws from the unreality of causal power, the non-existence of things, where existence is read, inherent existence, entails the falsity of the claim that things dependently arise. For if there are no things, surely nothing arises. This charge has a double edge. If the argument is successful, it not only shows that Nagarjuna's own position is vacuous, but that it contradicts one of the most fundamental tenets of Buddhist philosophy, that all phenomena are dependently arisen. Moreover, the opponent charges, on Nagarjuna's view, that the explanandum is not to be found potentially in the explanans. There is no explanation of how the former is to be understood as depending upon the latter. As Nagarjuna will emphasize in I-14, however, the very structure of this charge contains the seeds of its reply. The very emptiness of the effect, an effect presupposed by the opponent to be non-empty, in fact follows from the emptiness of the conditions and of the relationship between conditions and effect. Nagarjuna will, hence, reply to the opponent's attempted refutation by embracing the conclusion of his reductio together with the premises it supposedly refutes. 12. However, if a non-existent effect arises from these conditions, why does it not arise from non-conditions? How, the opponent asks, are we to distinguish coincidental sequence from causal consequence, or even from conventional dependence? And why don't things simply arise randomly from events that are non-conditions, since no special connection is posited to link consequence to their proper causal antecedents? 13. If the effect's essence is the conditions, but the conditions don't have their own essence, how could an effect, whose essence is the conditions, come from something that is essenceless? Finally, the opponent asks, since the phenomena we observe clearly have natures, and since those natures clearly derive from their causes, how could it be, as Nagarjuna argues, that they proceed by means of a process with no essence, from conditions with no essence? Whence do the natures of actual existence arise? Nagarjuna again will reply to this last charge by pointing out that since on his view the effects indeed have no essence, the opponent's presupposition is ill-founded. This move also indicates a reply to the problem posed in I-12. That problem is grounded in the mistaken view that a phenomenon's lack of inherent existence entails that it, being non-existent, could come into existence from nowhere. But, from nowhere, for the opponent, means from something lacking inherent existence. And indeed, for Nagarjuna, this is exactly the case. Effects lacking inherent existence depend precisely upon conditions that themselves lack inherent existence. Nagarjuna's summary of the import of this set of replies is terse and cryptic. But unpacking it with the aid of what has gone before provides an important key to understanding the doctrine of the emptiness of causation that is the burden of this chapter. 14. Therefore, neither with conditions as their essence, nor with non-conditions as their essence are there any effects. If there are no such effects, how could conditions or non-conditions be evident? First, Nagarjuna points out, the opponent begs the question in asserting the genuine existence of the effects in question. They, like their conditions, and like the process of dependent origination itself, are non-existent from the ultimate point of view. That is, they have no essence whatever. Hence, the third charge fails. As a consequence, in the sense in which the opponent supposes that these effects proceed from their conditions, namely that their essence is contained potentially in their causes, which themselves exist inherently, these effects need not be so produced. And so, finally, the effect containing conditions for which the opponent charges Nagarjuna with being unable to account are themselves unnecessary. In short, while the reificationist critic charges the Madhyamika with failing to come up with a causal link sufficiently robust to link ultimately real phenomena, for the Madhyamika philosopher the core reason for the absence of such a causal link is the very absence of such phenomena in the first place. We are now in a position to characterize explicitly the emptiness of causation and the way this doctrine is identical with the doctrine of dependent origination from conditions adumbrated in this chapter. It is best to offer this characterization using the via media formulation most consonant with Nagarjuna's philosophical school. We will locate the doctrine as a midpoint between two extreme philosophical views. That midpoint is achieved by taking conventions as the foundation of ontology, hence rejecting the very enterprise of a philosophical search for the ontological foundations of convention. Garfield. To say that causation is non-empty, or inherently existent, is to succumb to the temptation to ground our explanatory practice and discourse in genuine causal powers linking causes to effects. That is the reificationist extreme that Nagarjuna clearly rejects. To respond to the arguments against the inherent existence of causation by suggesting that there is then no possibility of appealing to conditions to explain phenomena, that there is no dependent origination at all, is the extreme of nihilism, also clearly rejected by Nagarjuna. To assert the emptiness of causation is to accept the utility of our causal discourse and explanatory practice, but to resist the temptation to see these as grounded in reference to causal powers or as demanding such grounding. Dependent origination simply is the explicability and coherence of the universe. Its emptiness is the fact that there is no more to it than that. Keep this analysis in mind, for when we reach chapter 24, in which the most explicit analysis of emptiness itself and of the relation of emptiness to the conventional world is articulated, we will see that the principal philosophical move in Nagarjuna's demystification of emptiness was this attack on a reified view of causality. Nagarjuna replaces the view shared by the metaphysician and the person in the street, a view that presents itself as common sense, but is in fact deeply metaphysical, with an apparently paradoxical, thoroughly empty, but in the end common sense view not only of causation, but of the entire phenomenal world. This theme, the replacement of apparent common sense that is deeply metaphysically committed with an apparently deeply metaphysical but actually common sense understanding of the phenomenal world, will recur in each chapter of the text.